Here. Okay, so again, welcome to class. Today we are going to start by doing our journaling. Journals today will focus on an ancient Christian hymn that has found its way into a lot of more recent hymns as well. It was from the 300s originally, parts of it called the Te Deum Laudamus. And so I'm going to have you follow along. I'm not going to ask any of the questions yet. You're going to follow along with the text. So all of you go ahead and type into a Google search engine, Te Deum, spelled T-E space D-E-U-M. And then you'll scroll down a little bit. You'll find and I know you're going to love this, the Wikipedia article on that. Now, a lot of times Wikipedia says some interesting things, but it does have the text of the hymn in both Latin and English. So you're going to scroll down partway in the Wikipedia article and follow along while I play a version, and this is a Scottish chant tone that probably goes back to the 1500s with slightly updated English language for the Te Deum. We're going to listen to that, and then I've got some questions. Once again, please find the text of the Te Deum, T-E-D-E-U-M, on Wikipedia. And you will find that there's a kind of a block right in the middle of the article that has both the Latin and the English. Give me a thumbs up when you have found that. Okay, looks like almost all of you have found that. So I'm going to share the screen, not really the screen at all. Rather, I'm just going to share the sound so that you can hear the music that goes along with this. And then after that, I'll put up the questions for you.
Cherubim and seraphim continue.
right, so there you have it. Obviously, the second portion of the hymn was added on in the early Renaissance period, probably in the 1200s, and this largely based on Psalms. Also, perhaps you recognize, if you've already gone to the Orthodox Church anyway, the "O Lord, have mercy upon us. O Lord, let thy mercy be upon us as our trust is in thee. O Lord, let thy mercy be upon us." That is, of course, an early part of the Christian liturgy going back to even the Greek. So anyway, there you have it, the Te Deum. It is historically considered possibly the greatest Western Christian hymn. And I would agree with that, with the possible, so if you're interested, not that I'm expecting a whole bunch of you to be like, oh, I'm interested in Christian hymnody and the way that Christians have historically worshiped God. But I'm hoping that you recognize what have you heard or learned about in this class that was pretty similar to that hymn? That hymn has a certain formulation that you should be somewhat familiar with. Anybody? Have to unmute yourselves.
I mean, like the overall like rhythm and chant sounds very familiar.
Oh, you mean just the chant tone? Yeah. I mean, those chant tones are very common. Many of the Psalms in the English tradition have a chant tone pretty similar. I was talking about the text, though. What is the text primarily focusing on?
Like the Nicene Creed.
Yeah, there we go. Hopefully you recognize that it's very similar in formulation to the Nicene Creed, at the very least, up until you get to the part that they added on later. It kind of switches a little bit of focus there. So you'll notice that the hymn is very creedal, firstly. And then what you might also notice is that the hymn has been borrowed throughout Christian history multiple times and has been altered here and there for Christians to continue singing, not just in the original Te Deum formulation. And by the way, if you scroll down on the Wikipedia site, you'll notice all the great composers that have written particular pieces of music to go along with the Te Deum, from Bach and Mozart and Haydn to Gustav Mahler. Gustav Holst, as well as others. And so the text was revisited many times by many of the great composers, firstly, and then secondly, sometimes the lyrics are simplified and brought up to more modern hymns that you guys might recognize. So can you think of any hymns that have some similar themes that you have sung and that you know, or maybe Christian music from today that sounds similar in terms of focus and themes? No? My lighthouse, I will follow my lighthouse. Sounds just like the Te Deum, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, no. So clearly, if you're thinking of anything that you're modern in church, it's probably nothing to do with the Te Deum. But if you go back just a little bit, there is a hymn that is sung fairly often, even in evangelical circles, that was based originally on the Te Deum. Does anyone know what hymn that would be? So there's like 5 hymns that evangelicals still sing, and we rotate through them. And then if they're really cool, we put a chorus and they're like, my chains are gone, I've been set free. And it doesn't really pertain to the rest of the text. You know what I'm talking about? So there's about 5 hymns. One of those 5 hymns is somewhat similar to the Te Deum, and based on it to some extent. How about Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty? Know that one? It talks about the cherubim and seraphim singing praises to God, very similar to the words of the Te Deum. That one is based on it. One that is better and more directly based on it is actually one called Holy God, We Praise Thy Name. And both of those hymns, Holy, 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 and Lord God, We Praise Thy Name, is in every hymnal. Doesn't matter if you're Catholic or if you're Baptist or if you're Lutheran. If you have a hymnal, and by the way, all these churches did have hymnals up until 1975, That hymn would have been in it, and based on the Te Deum. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter which Protestant denomination that you're a part of. Going clear back to the Te Deum is a part of what we have done as Christians until, fortunately, the baby boomers took over the church. And once that happened, only good things could happen. When baby boomers rule, the world gets better. Do I have an amen? Okay, I've got one. How many of you are like, well, maybe that move into baby boomer world was not the best move? Anyone? All right. Oh, guys, come on. Jackson's like, yeah, I'll vote on that. So there you have it. Let's now look at the questions that I have for the text on the Te Deum. So your journals, here we go, going back to a more basic screen share sort of a deal. Okay, and okay, that's not it. Okay, so here's your questions. So when you guys are done answering the questions, you can just give me a quick thumbs up for those of you who I can see anyway, so I can have a general idea how we're doing. All right, so I see that Jackson is done. Is there anyone else who is done? You can feel free, if you're not showing your face in the comments or in the chat, you can let me know. So I see that Jack is done. Jack, Jackson, both. Okay, so I see Sam is done. And Kellen. Give you guys about another minute. And then we will move on. If you need more time to do this, I'm going to be posting this video later on Google Classroom, so you can go back and see the questions and finish answering if you need a little more time. It's very strange when you drink coffee and you're like, well, that doesn't quite taste like coffee. What does it taste like? Not exactly sure. It makes me wonder. I told my wife yesterday that I was pretty sure I had the COVID because I was having the urge to grow big black wings and start flapping around and, you know, at night, screeching. All right, and with all that, hopefully you guys are done or done enough. Let's move on. Let's talk about what I'm going to call the prelude to the Reformation. Now you might say, Mr. Cook, but I thought the church didn't have any problems before the Reformation. Oh, to the contrary. The church has lots of problems before the Reformation. We've already talked about the fact how after the Roman Empire falls in the West, the papacy grows with power because of the lack of single political power in one spot. Now there's lots of different political powers, and so really in some ways the Pope becomes the most powerful person in the entire former Western Roman Empire. That's all fine and dandy until you have multiple popes. Additionally, the guy who's Pope might not always be doing the best thing. All right, so as the French kingdom has grown in power in the 1300s, and of course, going clear back to Charlemagne, the Frankish kingdoms had been powerful, kind of on and off, depending on who was ruling, and been in some sort of competition with Rome, right? Because we've got the Italians down there, and we've got the French, the Franks, then we've got the Spanish that are constantly fighting with the Muslims. And so we have these different different kingdoms competing within the Western former Roman Empire. Okay, and so now we have ethnic problems, right? So the French decide they want a French Pope. After all, wouldn't having a French Pope be nice? And it would make some degree of sense because these positions within the church are also ones of political power. And so if the Pope is French rather than Italian, which he typically has been Italian, then he's going to be favoring, you know, French interests. And so there's a political desire here. The Italians, of course, obviously want to keep an Italian Pope. And so when one of the popes died, there is a Pope that is elected. It's close in the College of Cardinals. And in case you're wondering, there's not a voice that announces from heaven when a Pope dies. You know, God saying, I want you to pick That guy over there with the white hair. Which one? The one second to the left in the back. That's not how it works. Instead, and rather, the cardinals come together. It's called a college of cardinals. These are not birds. These are bishops. Bishops who have been appointed to the second highest position in the Roman Church. Cardinal is second only to the Pope, and typically cardinals will elect someone to be Pope from their own ranks. And so there was a lot of French, because there's a lot of French Christians, right? French Catholics. There's a lot of French cardinals, but there's slightly a bigger majority of Italians. And so the Italians elect an Italian Pope. Now, he realizes that this could be bad if the trend continues, and the French could eventually elect a French Pope. So what he does is he tries to institute a large majority of Italian cardinals. You may not know this, but it's up to the Pope to elevate people from bishop or archbishop to cardinal, right? So Roman Catholicism is very hierarchical. It goes like this. Jesus at the top is the idea, right? Jesus is number one. The Pope is number two. He's Jesus's vicar on earth, right? And then underneath the Pope, you have a collection of cardinals. And underneath those cardinals, you have a collection of archbishops or bishops. And then under them, you have a whole bunch of priests, right? Running around doing priestly things. And it's very hierarchical. That's just the nature of it. And when the majority of people there are, Italian, they're going to want to continue to support an Italian Pope. Hey, Mr. Ferguson.
Hello.
What's going on?
I was waving at you and Jackson screamed, but you didn't say hi. So
Oh, well, Jackson is sometimes on and sometimes not. I might have the COVID, you know.
Don't be like that.
Did you guys hear all that?
Don't need to wear your mask. If you don't take that off, I'm leaving.
Fine. Anyway, so the majority of Italians are put on the College of Cardinals. And of course, this means they're going to elect more Italians because they all want good Italian things. And so this very much frustrates the French. Now, you might say, what would the French do in a case like this? You might say that they would typically do what's known as the French salute.
Yeah. The YMCA?
But they don't. Instead, they raise an army and they decide to attack. So they elect their own pope. They say, no, we're going to have our own pope. You have your pope, we'll have our pope. But you can't really have two popes. That doesn't make sense. You can't have two vicars of Christ. You can only have one. Jesus gave the keys to Peter, not to, Peter and Bob. And so they decided the best thing to do is to basically take over Rome, attack Rome, tear down the Italian Pope, and then move the papacy to France because France is more pleasant than Rome. And let me tell you, that is true. Rome is just dirty. It's like a pile. In fact, it's like many piles. You have to watch where you step on the streets of Rome because their dogs really are, they put their piles in the most unusual spots in Rome. And so the French are like, let's get the heck out of here. Well, their attack on Rome fails. And so they're like, fine. And they move to Avignon anyway, setting up a palace there for the Pope. And so there you have it. We've got two popes now. It's what I've always wanted. If you thought one pope was good, two has got to be better. And so by 1400, we have two popes. And you can see that the former Roman Empire is generally divided based upon which allegiance politically made the most sense. And so you can see that there was a great deal of allegiance to the Avignon Pope. Even the lower chunk of Italy preferred to ally not with the Italians, but with the French. Meanwhile, the old allegiance to Rome included places like England. And notice, of course, we've got the Kingdom of Denmark. Those Danes have finally been tamed. It took them a while. 8 centuries of raping and pillaging, they finally kind of calmed down and turned into Christians. Takes them a long time, though. Those Danes are nuts. And then, of course, we have varied allegiance within, what is today we call Germany. And so there you have it. Divided Europe because we've got two different popes. So there's also sort of theological questions here, such as, if the Pope in, let's say, Avignon is not the actual Pope, right? If he's a fake Pope or a false Pope, then what about those Christians who are under his care? Because clearly he is claiming an authority that is not his. He does not have St. Peter's authority. And so when he hears confessions and forgives sins, or any of his bishops or any of his priests, are the parishioners actually forgiven? When the people do the Eucharist, when the priests under the Avignon Pope do the Eucharist, is it a valid Eucharist? And so these are big and important theological questions for people. Okay. And now, okay, that was not, I don't know what happened. Okay, continuing. So this leads to someone realized that there are some serious theological problems here. The conciliar movement. We have to reconcile the church under one pope, obviously. And so they come up with a council in order to reconcile the church under one pope. But the other faction didn't like the council that was called because it had too many French people on it. And so they call a counter council. So now we have two different councils trying to reconcile the church under one pope with two different popes. And then one of the popes dies. The Avignon Pope kicks the bucket. So now there is only one pope, and it would be a perfect time for the people in France to get back under the authority of the Pope in Rome. But no, because there's a council that says that he's not the legitimate pope. And so then there's another pope is appointed. So two councils, two popes, drops down to one pope, but two councils. The second council appoints another pope. So we get back up to two popes and two councils. And then on top of that, we've got the Eastern Empire, which is, shrinking by the day because of the Muslim Turks are, taking over this town and then that town. And Constantinople itself is threatened by the Muslim Turks. And so our opportunity to basically reunite the entire church under, together, where we don't have, a division between Eastern and Western Christians. The Eastern Christians are so desperate to be saved by the Western armies that they basically say, we will submit ourselves to the Pope in Rome. We will no longer submit ourselves to the Pope in Constantinople. Will put himself under the authority of the Pope in Rome. But you see the problem here, right? How many popes are there? So which pope do you support? And of course, if the Western Church isn't under one head, which pope do you appeal to for help? And so ultimately, the Western Church basically does nothing. And then, of course, we end up with two councils and two popes. And you might say, well, that was fine. This is not solved. And the Eastern Church is about ready to crumble under the assault of the Muslims. Don't worry about it, guys, because why have only two popes when you could have three? That's exactly what the people in Pisa were thinking. Wouldn't it be nice if we had our own pope too? And so we have for a while three popes, one in Rome, one in Pisa, and one in Avignon. Eventually, and fortunately for the church, the Pope in Avignon, Felix, realizes that this can't go on. This is just dividing the church. And so he renounces his position. And I believe that the Pisan Pope dies. And so by 418, Martin is seen as the only Pope. So this whole ordeal is known as the Great Western Schism. And it's a schism that is there for a time, for really quite a long time. I mean, you can see when the schism here really starts is in 1378, and the schism doesn't completely end until 1418. So that's quite a few years of division within the church. And only for a short time, almost just for the humor of it, do we have an extra pope in Pisa. So ultimately, though, the East still is being attacked by the Muslims and doesn't get much help from the West. And in 1453, Byzantium falls to the Muslims, and the Eastern Roman Empire that had been Christianized, going clear back to Constantine, falls, and it becomes Islamic. The Hagia Sophia is turned into a mosque. And to this very day, the Eastern Empire has been weakened because of this. Yeah, so I suppose you could say it's kind of sad. So anyway, there you have it. The Great Western Schism and the fall of Byzantium. And at this point, we're going to see that the papacy continues to assert a lot of political authority. And eventually, he's going to be doing some things, some pretty corrupt things, in the late 1400s that's going to lead directly to the Protestant Reformation. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about a few other things. Among them, still looking at natural law. So I'm going to stop the lecture at this point, and then I'm going to be giving you your assignment here for the rest of class. So there's two videos I want you to watch. They are in your Google Classroom. One of them is Aquinas 101 on natural law. So we'll continue to discuss what natural law is according to St. Thomas Aquinas. And the other one is Bishop Robert Barron discussing the American conception of liberty in contrast to the Christian concept of liberty and the purpose of life, as seems to be obvious from the point of natural law. There's a series of questions, probably based upon both videos and the number of questions that you have and the good answers that you're going to give. It'll probably take you somewhere between 20 to 25 minutes to do. And I'm going to give you guys the rest of the period to do that. Any questions before I let you all go? All right. Well, may the 4th be with you. Oh, it's the 5th.
It's Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de
Speaking
Mayo.
of French, they beat the French on Cinco de Mayo. The Spanish did.
Well, there you go.
That's what Cinco de Mayo celebrates.
There we go. Sometimes it's good when it's good when the French lose. Sometimes it's good when the French win. I'm thinking especially of Charles the Hammer. Had Charles the Hammer, the great Frankish guy, lost, you and I would probably be worshiping Allah very shortly. Actually, it's almost time to get on the map.
Isn't Cinco de Mayo when like the Mexicans declared independence from Spain and like eventually won?
It's when they beat the French in some battle sometime.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Look it up.
It's literally about Mexico's independence.
No, that's a misconception. Look it up. I was just listening to that on the radio this morning. So
I did, and the people on the radio are out. Okay, the real history of Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo isn't the same as Mexico's independence. Oh, yeah, maybe you are right. The Mexican victory over the French at the Battle of Puebla, which took place on May 5th, 1862. A year prior, Mexican President Benito Juarez suspended payment of all foreign debts. In response, France invaded Mexico. So it's independence, but they're like beating the French. Okay, yeah, you're right.
And now you also know why Mr. Cook, we call him Joseph the Hammer Cook from that one French guy.
That's what they call me, I guess. And with that, guys, I will see you later tomorrow if you're in AP or Friday otherwise. If you're concerned about wanting to take the Chapter 35 AP US History quiz from yesterday before you guys come back next week, send me an email and we'll figure out a time to meet over the great Zoom to do that. Otherwise, have a good rest of your day. Au revoir, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was French. Au revoir. Okay.
When your teacher remind me of Ben Shapiro.
Really?
Not quite as